How important was someone like Bob Dylan to you?
Bob's an inspiration to all, always, and always be. Came out in defiance of all the odds, right? But great songs, you know, beautifully expressed and beautifully written. And he had a large effect. I'm not saying on the Stones particularly, but just all round. John Lennon was incredibly impressed with Bob, right from the word go. And he also put a new slant on how you could write songs, and do they all have to be 3 minutes long? You know, or if you need a little more time to express what you want to say, take it and do it. So, and we sort of took that along with us, and we started doing 11-minute tracks and stuff. But all of these guys, and Bob particularly, has opened up possibilities. Probably a lot to do with the fact that the long-playing album was becoming the preferred method of recording. So you didn't have to rely on a hit every 3 months or every 2. You weren't into that. You could get out of that grind of Tin Pan Alley a little, and people expected an album as a viable means to express yourself, which obviously gives the artist a lot more time to be able to, to come up with the stuff.
Oh, by that time, the Rolling Stones had become, one of the biggest bands in the world. You've talked about, heroin and drugs as being almost a kind of way to handle stardom and certain aspects of that fame that were complicated for you. I wonder if you could say a little bit about that.
Drugs, they seep into your life. You're not really aware of it at first. I think my first feeling was about that. I mean, I'm working with these guys that are older. I'm on the road. And we're 19, 20 years old, and it's taken its toll on us, the road work, and these guys are older and they're all together, and you say, how do you do this, man? What's the secret? Well, you take one of these, you smoke a little of that, the penny drops, But at the same time, it was all backstage and a sort of secret. Getting in is easy, getting out is difficult. It took me a while. And don't recommend it really to anybody, except that what happens is what happens. It seemed perfectly natural at the time, and nobody was arguing, So I went ahead. I really don't say much more about drugs because I could give you a lecture all night about the, about the quality and. But anyway, all my news is out of date. I'm telling you.
I love you, Daddy.
Thank you, sweetheart.
While all that was going on, the Stones were obviously still out there. I mean, I wonder, the one thing that always seemed to me to distinguish the Rolling Stones from from many other bands, obviously, is performance. That it always seemed to be such an essential aspect, of what the Stones were about. And I wonder if you could just talk about that. The moment that you realized, like, that on stage, this band was going to be able to do something that maybe no one else really had been able to do.
There's an aspect about going on stage that it's always exciting because you don't know what's going to happen next, and you only get one take. This is not like making records or anything. It's, you know, once you're on, it's full steam ahead. I mean, from my point of view, I'm watching Mick's ass. You know. I'm trying to cover every move.
Sorry to interrupt.
Okay. Great. Yes, well, anyway, I'm covering Mick's ass. But that's the way, you know, from my point of view on stage, and trying to keep the whole band together, is I have to make sure that he's supported wherever he goes in the room, whatever he does, so that he feels totally confident that no matter what he does, that the band will be there, even if it means switching beats and rhythms, and you know, as long as he's feeling comfortable. That was the whole point, like a safety net in a way. But at the same time, you know, when things are going well, you want to just prod it a little bit and get a little more out. You know, come on. It all depends on the circumstances. It depends on the weather and things like that, which you can't have any control over. But with Mick, I had a minimal amount of control in that at least he'd know that I'm there behind him, leading the way.
You know, you talk in the book about sort of lead singer syndrome, you know, and the relationship of the lead singer to a band. I mean, clearly, I mean, the story of you and Mick is an old, complex story. But, you know, if you could just describe that process of, you know, that relationship between, you know, the guy up front singing the songs, the band behind him, and you know, kind of how that's worked, you know, for you and Mick, for the Rolling Stones.
It's a strange balance of things, but as I say, for a lead singer, for the front man, so to speak, it's important that he feels like totally confident in that, you know, that he has a band behind him that's not going to fall apart if he tries anything. You know, be ludicrous if you like. I mean, you know, we'll be there. You know. At the same time, the band might not feel the same way about the lead singer some days. You know? But it's all tossed up in the air, and every gig is different. This is why I never got bored doing this stuff. Because take the Stones on stage, 1963 or now, it's still that same sense of adventure, of you know, things, and also you want things to, you don't want everything to be rote. That's the antithesis of rock and roll. So yeah, we can rock, and occasionally we do roll. And that's when I like it.
You know, during the 80s, you and Mick had hard times. You know, there were a lot of disagreements. It seemed as if the Rolling Stones were going to break up at times. And that led to your solo career in many ways. I mean, I remember very early on, you're once saying, I don't ever want to be in a situation of having to decide, you know, is this song mine or is this song for the Rolling Stones? But then you found yourself in that situation. I wonder if you could talk about that moment and that experience and what it was like.
In retrospect, it proved very interesting for myself, because since everything I'd done up to then was, I mean, I write songs for Mick to be able to sing, you know. I wouldn't say tailor-made, because I'm not that good a tailor. But, you know, I say, for example, a Midnight Rambler, ain't nobody else could sing that except Mick, you know, and I wrote it for him.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Or Give Me Shelter. I think you look for those things, and those are maybe the examples of how we work at our best, you know. The rest of it, hey, it is only rock and roll, and sometimes you're flinging things in the air and you don't know if they're going to hit the deck. You know? And well, where did that go? You know? Levitation is possible.
One of the things in people's responses to the book, one of the things that's really been striking is people's response to the way that you write about, the various women in your life, someone like Ronnie Spector or Anita Pallenberg, of course, and your wife Patty now, and even women that you knew more casually. I mean, people are surprised. I mean, that a kind of toughness in your image, but a kind of generosity and sweetness in terms of a lot of what you have to say about all of those people.
I found it very futile to say anything bad about women. It just doesn't swing. I love them dearly, but then if I expanded on it, then we'd be here all night. Yeah, I'd like to leave women just there. I could swing with them. I love them dearly, and I'm already going on too much.
You've talked about songwriting a little bit. Clearly, you and Mick were locked in a kitchen to write your first song, and since then, obviously, it's been a long time since then. But I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that process, both writing songs with Mick, writing songs with someone like Steve Jordan, writing songs yourself.
Well, sometimes with Mick, I keep looking around for a new kitchen. Let's try that again. And I've always done everything. I've never really written by myself. I've never really liked to do anything by myself, except sleep. Everything else I've done is a joy of collaboration, of bouncing off of somebody else's ideas. And the same with the guitar playing with the Stones. I mean, virtuoso I'm not, and I never intended to be and wanted to be. But I'm very interested in playing something off against the other guy and seeing what comes back. And as Ronnie would and I call it, the ancient form of weaving. It's you can't tell where the needle went in or where it came out, but it's a different thread. That's what makes it fun to me, and that's what turns me on. Is the collaboration between musicians and between guys that writing. I couldn't do it in a vacuum, mind you. Not that I've been in one.
I mean, in terms of the other musicians in the band, going back and listening to a lot of the early Stones stuff, it seems to me more and more what I hear in those records is the importance of Charlie Watts. And I wonder if you could talk about him, just as a player and as a person, and his significance for you.
Charlie, yes, I could say so much about Charlie. Really, the solidest drummer that I have ever worked with. Probably because we've worked together for so long that we can almost second guess what's going to happen, and sometimes even try and outguess ourselves just for the fun of it, and I usually screw up. But I mean, Charlie's a gentleman. I don't know how he does it, quite honestly. I mean, he takes everything so smooth. Sometimes I can get mad and stuff. But I've never seen Charlie, or only once, ever show any temper or anything. He's an incredible calming influence in the band. The central point between Mick and myself that can both make us feel kind of stupid at times. Come on, guys, I mean. And, to me, it's just a sheer privilege to work with Charlie Watts, and probably the big blessing in the band.
I'm sure. Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah.